Hello there and welcome to episode 4 of my quick tutorial series for Against the Storm. In this episode we're going to go over the intricacies of the Resolve food and service system. These are the mechanisms which keep your people alive, well fed, happy and eventually even churning out reputation points which will make you win the game. So, I was already in the previous episodes explaining a lot. You will find the description box down below the link to the playlist for this. So, for today though, we want to check on out how does Resolve work, how does food work, and how do we get to manipulate that. I also am building a trading post because trading is a very nice thing in between. Just so informational, I have built the buildings here for a little bit of food production, for a little bit of wood processing, for a little bit of fabric processing, just so, or rather should say coats, so we get together what we require to keep our people somewhat happy. But how does Resolve come together? First of all, every culture, every species has a baseline Resolve. The Resolve value of the humans is the highest baseline, whereas the reptiles have the lowest. Then we gain Resolve for having housing. If we have racial specific housing, we get even more. And then there's food. Food works like this in this game. Every time somebody in your colony has worked for a certain time, for most species that's 1 minute 30 as far as I remember, they will go to the next best hearth, take a break, and grab a bite to eat. If they have complex food available, they will also start to eat one piece of complex food each that will make them happy up here. So people will always try to get the basic food and then top it off with complex food. What is complex food? Complex food is everything tagged as complex food. Good stuff, eh? So all the things that can be harvested directly and eaten directly are non-complex food. The difference between the one and the other is that complex food, if it hits the spot for the folks here, so for example, if we get biscuits to the beaver people and the human people, you get there up to +5 of Resolve. This is something that is going to be applied to the folks here as long as they get a steady supply of biscuits. Applies to each and every one of these, so pickled goods even get a bonus up to +8, which shows that the beaver people like this especially, and all the cultures have different likes and dislikes. Complex food doesn't do anything for the people who have no preference for it except for keeping them alive. People that don't get food will suffer a stack of starvation. I have to go here into the encyclopedia to showcase it properly. So every race here has something called hunger tolerance. As you see here, in the starter ones, there's a range between 6 to 12, and the other cultures have different ones. Hunger tolerance 6 means as soon as this human is suffering the 6th time from hunger without getting anything, he'll die. Well, lizards can even suffer 12 times, so they get a lot of time. Each time, though, they suffer from hunger, they get a stacking Resolve debuff. So -2 per missed meal, which will be worked off bit by meal that they can eat after there's something new there. This means hunger does not only kill your people eventually, it also lowers the Resolve, which can go into a spiral of problems in the storm season when there's the extra hostility debuff happening there and all. Therefore, basic foods are absolutely mandatory to have. This leads me to the next point. Basic foods are always a good thing from the traders to buy, as are building materials. Basic foods because you can process them into better foods. Processing stuff into complex foods usually always gives you more food than you put in, so you often put 5 pieces of food in and get 10 pieces of food out. So processing is very valuable. Apart from that, traders also sometimes offer you perks, which can help you with food production, and to sum it all up, food production is really one of the most pressing matters. You usually set up a bit of a production here of the of the basic materials there, and then you go directly to the food production and then to the complex food production. There's another rung on the ladder after complex food, which I call services. I put here a couple of things into perspective. Let's see. A temple. Wonderful. So these buildings are service buildings, or I like to call them like that. These buildings use up advanced materials, like the temple uses incense and scrolls. There's also ale, training gear, all those things. And they make in return people happy, and they all have a passive bonus that they apply if a certain amount of people are working in there. These buildings are the highest level of sophistication in your culture. They are not worth it to be chased after before you have installed basic material production, food and complex food production, and then you can aim for the services. Before that, they can be also very interesting for their passive bonuses that they give. A couple of them have really powerful bonuses, for example, lowering hostility and such. So sometimes it can be really interesting to have the building before you have steady supply of ale and wine, for example. Because, for example, here we get a +3 of global resolve by just putting people in there. But as a general rule of thumb, these service buildings have the highest cost of resource to put them up. They require workers to just function in their passive bonus, and therefore during the construction phase of a colony, they will be more or less a fool's errand to rush after. What's also very important to note is that you can upgrade the consumption control menu in the Obsidian Archive very early on. This allows you to forbid your folks to eat something specific. This is very useful, as you can forbid them to eat, for example, the complex foods during times where you don't even need that resolve bonus. This is one thing which I personally find extremely useful, and unlocking consumption control and funneling your folks down to eating just basic foods can help you to use the complex food in the storm season when people tend to get unhappy. Then you can whip out the beer and the biscuits and whatnot. But before you have that unlocked, you have no capabilities of doing anything there. The key to success here is that the basic food keeps your people alive, while the complex food, if you put the correct type of food in your colony, it'll make the happiness go skyrocket in your colony. And as soon as this blue pip here is crossed, a certain culture will start putting out reputation per minute. So this is a way to actually win the game by putting food into people, which is a really nice thing. Sometimes I even go as far as buying complex foods off of the traders just to give myself a boost of resolve if necessary. There's plenty of options how you can tackle this, but altogether, I really gotta say, or I want to stress out one more time, that the course of orders is food, building materials, they're basically on the same rung of the ladder, and then you go for the rest, like I said. What's really something that also is worth noting, last time I calculated it, depending on the cultures that you play with, your folks will require something between 6 to 9 pieces of food per year. Correct me if I stand wrong there, it's a bit of a finicky calculation, because some species go more often into breaks than others. There's that makes a different hunger that makes a different hunger behavior here. So if you are more interested in these things, feel free to dive deep into the resolve. Look out here, for example, humans break interval 2. So all 2 minutes they require a piece of food. The lizards, while they can maintain more hunger, they require food more often, as you see. So this is the thing how it works on out. And this also means that a food stockpile of 173 isn't nearly as much as I personally like them to be. So, this episode is a little bit shorter than the others because there's not that much more to say, except for maybe one thing. When you are drafting in your situation, Once you have a supply of basic food, it pays off massively to keep an eye out for those buildings that allow you to process the things that you are currently earning. But if that is not possible, do not fret too much about that. There's various ways to win the game. Making people happy with food and services is only one way, and sometimes, if the drafts stand bad, it's not even attainable. For real. For example, if your cornerstones are favoring trade, you can easily do a run where you almost produce no food by yourself, but instead you're importing all the stuff because your cornerstones make you win the more gold you spend, amber you spend. So there's plenty of options. Don't go too crazy for that. I just wanted to explore in this episode how the whole system works. One last thing, though, that I want to mention here. As soon as the folks start earning reputation via being happy, they grow decadent. So, decadence is a stat that is different for each race. Means the lizards get their first point of reputation when they have 15 resolve, and as soon as that point of resolve has reputation has been earned, they will require 7 points more of resolve to get the next one. Whereas the beavers, they need a 30, which is a lot, but after the first point, they only need a 32, then a 34, then a 36, and so on and so forth. So that's things that are worth mentioning when you want to win via making your people happy. Lizards are, for example, a bad choice, because after a couple of points they will become very, very hard to pay. Or, well, let's not call it a bad choice, but it is worth knowing. And now, well, you know pretty much how things work. Resilience, by the way, is how fast or slow their resolve drops in the storm season. Now, this is what I wanted to put down for this episode. In the next episode, I'm going to focus entirely around how to win a game, categorize victory conditions, and all those things. I hope this series helped you out. Let me know in the comment section if you have any further questions. Leave a like, leave a subscribe. Like I said initially, in the description box you can find a playlist link to the whole thing of my tutorial series here. And many thanks go out to all the supporters of the channel, and a lot of thanks especially to you for watching this video up until the very end. See you all next time. Bye bye.